Joining us now from Sydney is Jonathan Barratt, Managing Director of Commodity Broking Services. He helps to manage risk for agricultural growers and users. You're pretty bullish here then, aren't you, Jonathan?
Rishaad, yeah, we are at the moment. We've actually been bullish rice for some time because it just really hasn't been a performer when you look across the spectrum of all the grains. So rice at the moment we feel is one that represents very good value. We have been long a little bit, and it was very nice to see that move last night.
OK, what's the reason behind it? I guess Pakistan and the floods there are going to be playing a major role.
Well, what we're seeing is that, yes, you're dead right, with the floods which we're seeing, obviously in Pakistan, but more so in China. We've seen a series of floods which have actually affected close to 55 to 60% of the area under use. At the end of the day, we actually feel that'll affect between 15 and 20% of actual supply for rice in China, or growing of rice in China. So we think, if anything there, that does represent to us quite a concern, particularly when China actually grow what they consume. And at the stage at the moment, it looks like they've actually had to import some rice of late. So that sends a little bit of a signal to us.
OK, if you want to be able to, let's say, take advantage of what you're suggesting is another 30% to go in terms of rice prices, what's the best way to do it? I mean, I understand that you use warrants to bet prices are going to rise. Is that a good strategy, or some of the companies, perhaps, which are big manufacturers of rice, are they worth investing in?
Well, you can look at that. I think the cleanest way is through the use of futures or warrants. Warrants are nice and easy because you know exactly up front what you can invest and what you can actually lose. Futures, it's a bit of a large contract, and really only for those investors that really understand futures. But I think if it's looking at warrants, warrants are easy, they're easily understood, they're just like options, and people can certainly get that upside momentum with a limited outlay.
Jonathan, what about, you said back in June that grains were looking cheap, and we've seen a big lift up here. I mean, wheat up 51% since you made those remarks, corn up over 20%. Do you still stick to that?
Well, I do stick to it, but some of the grains have obviously moved a lot further than what we've actually anticipated. So grains like wheat are perhaps a little bit overdone, and we still see prices sort of coming back a little bit, but overall we're still quite bullish. Dips certainly on wheat. Corn is trading right at the top end of its range, and if we can break through that at the moment, then I feel that corn will have a run to the top side. But one I'm actually looking at closely and represents, I think, the best value is rice, but also soybean. Soybean in itself, we've had some concerns, particularly in China again, with what's happening there with the weather. And I think soybeans have actually come back to an area where I actually like to accumulate. So if anything, if I was looking at things, soybeans and rice, yeah.
I was just going to say, given, rice prices going up, and given the tragedy of what's happened in Pakistan and the floods there, and also, of course, the disaster in China, do you see food riots breaking out?
Well, I think that's one of the concerns that I think we all find, but we've been placed in a situation where world ending stocks for a lot of these grains have been relatively high. The concern we have is actually getting these sorts of grains to those affected areas, and I think that, to me, is one of the concerns, because if they don't get it, then it will cause those food riots. And in particular, with food riots, you also see food inflation, and I think that's some of the concerns that we hold at the moment, given that we can't get those world-ending stocks, or those stocks, to the consumers.
Jonathan, thank you so much for your time. Jonathan Barratt, he's from Commodity Broking Services, where he's Managing Director, just going through some of these commodities, some of these agricultural commodities, which he sees actually as rising in the next few weeks and months ahead.